Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the live question and answer session for the Pet Summit Dog Nutrition Summit. I am your host, Dr. Judy Morgan. Maybe I should say hostess. I don't know. Anyway, I'm the person that's kind of leading this thing. How's that? Works. I'm a person. Okay. Anyway, this is Caroline Capabianco. For anybody who was not tuned in yesterday, Caroline works for us for Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets. She does a lot of the moderation in our private community chats and also on our Facebook pages. She's a wealth of knowledge, and she happens to be up here visiting because normally she works remotely. We're trying to get her to come here permanently. So she happens to be here visiting this week. Yay! Lucky us, because we get her brain for this as well. So hopefully everyone had a great day today watching presentations. We had some of my favorite people on today, so that is really, really cool. And Paula from Ireland, thank you very much for showing up yet again. And it's so funny. She says, I'm totally loving the summit. I am all caught up. P.S. will be in sponge mode soon. So be a sponge, suck in all the knowledge you can, because something that we think is really, really important here at Naturally Healthy Pets is empowering pet parents with knowledge, because knowledge is power. And when you have the power to stand up and advocate for your pet and also advocate for good nutrition for your pet, that is huge, because you see such huge differences and changes in your pet. Have you always fed raw food?
With this dog, yes. With my previous dog, no. And my previous dog is what set me on this journey with better nutrition, because I had a Great Dane prior and I knew they had short lifespans to begin with. So I was like, I want to do everything that I can in my power to get a longer lifespan.
How long did we got Portugal in the house again too. How long did your Great Dane live?
He passed a month shy of his 9th birthday.
And see, that sadly is so typical.
It is, but I adopted him when he was 2. So the first 2 years of his life, when I probably could have made the best impact, it was already said and done. Yeah. So, I mean, I did what I could for the next 7 years that I had him.
And we also had a lot of genetic problems in some of these breeds as well. But some of my holistic cohorts and in my own practice, we are starting to see some of these Danes and Dobermans and Wolfhounds living well into their teens, which, we've had some Great Danes make it to like 16. And that is a huge difference from what we have just come to accept as the norm. Like, these dogs are going to die between 7 and 9. And nutrition is the biggest piece of that. So really, really, really huge. I'm seeing a lot of the same people. So this is great. Thank you for coming back again tonight. So we'll do a basic rundown of who you heard today. And I'd like you to put in the chat who was your favorite if you got to watch more than one today. Because I know it's hard to devote your entire day to these. However, Paula says she is in sponge mode and she has just been loving it. So I have a feeling that she has basically cleared her schedule and said, I'm going to watch these things because I'm loving it. So that's great. Sardines in water or olive oil, you can really do either. Both are healthy, as long as it's a good organic olive oil. So I guess that would be my concern with that. But Dr. Nick was so amazing, so much fun. He is fun. He is really fun. And I was on a podcast today, and he talked about, is a vegan diet good for pets? And somebody asked me that on a podcast today, and I kind of had the same response as Dr. Nick. No, our dogs and cats really, and I know this is a dog summit, but I'm going to throw cats in here too, because cats are obligate carnivores. They really are meatosauruses. Our dogs can get away with the vegan diet, but in my opinion, it's really hard to balance a vegan diet without using any synthetic vitamins and minerals and additives to get everything that they need in there. And I'm going to throw the insect diets in here as well. We just don't have enough evidence on those yet. Like, I want to see nutritional studies. I want somebody to grind up a bunch of grasshoppers or crickets or mealworms or whatever it is they're using, and I want them to tell me the exact amount of every vitamin, mineral, amino acid in them, so that we have a profile and we can compare that to other protein sources. And then I want to see feeding trials that don't last 6 months. I want to see feeding trials on hundreds of pets for 10 years. And I want to see, what does their coat look like? What's their heart function? What's their kidney function? That's really what we need, instead of jumping on these bandwagons very early on and saying, yay, a new fad, let's all do that. And Dr. Nick Thompson he is really into regenerative farming, and I've done interviews with him where he talks about regenerative farming and how really regenerative farming is going to save the planet, not wiping out cow farming and pig farming and chicken farming. So there's just different ways that we can help our planet, and vegan dog food is is really not one of them. So, but on Nick Thompson, we do have 2 courses on drjudyu.com that Dr. Nick Thompson teaches. One is raw feeding the basics. So if you're new to raw feeding, you want to make sure you're doing it right, definitely check out his course, because he's so much fun to listen to. And then he also has a course called Bones and How to Feed Them. So if you're new to feeding raw meaty bones to your dog or your cat, and you want to know how to do it safely, the appropriate sizes, how often, the appropriate amounts, that's a great place to start. Okay. What dose of quercetin do you recommend for dog with seasonal allergies? Anything else you recommend be given with it? Should I try to achieve the quercetin dose from food, or is from supplement okay? So if you have a dog who has a lot of allergies and you want to use quercetin, you're probably going to need a supplement. Depending on how allergic the dog is, it's going to be a little bit tricky to get it all from the food, I think. And dosing is going to be variable depending on the product that you're using. So there should be dosing on the product. Human products can be used for dogs. So I can't give you an exact answer on that. And then there are tons of things that you can use for allergies. In my book, Keeping Your Pets Naturally Healthy, there's a very long chapter on allergies, treating them, supplementing for them, different herbs that you can use. And depending on what the allergies are, there's a lot of herbs. We can use CBD, we can use PEA, we can use topicals, balms, CBD, salves. There's so many things that we can use. So I would say, look at the list, look at our blogs on allergies, and we have courses on allergies. Dr. Connor Brady has an allergy course on Dr. Judy U. So look at those and then figure out what works best for your dog. And I recommend don't dump everything on them at once. Pick 1 or 2 supplements and say, okay, I'm going to give these a try. And if you get a little bit of effect, but not quite enough, you can look at your dosing, or you can layer on something else. And a lot of times we have to layer things depending on how bad they are. Pets with anxiety, a lot of times it's multiple layers. Pets with arthritis and mobility issues, it's going to be multiple layers. Always starts with diet, always starts with good nutrition, but then we layer on what we need for each individual. Okay. 1-year-old Cavapoo, dehydrated before, constant struggle to get her to drink, add a lot of moisture to her food. Anything else you would recommend to get her to drink more? So if she's on a high moisture diet, a raw food, a gently cooked food, you can add bone broth, you can add goat's milk, those sorts of things. And if she doesn't like to drink out of the bowl, then add more to the food. Some dogs get to a point where they're like, now you're feeding me soup. I can't do that. If you're feeding a freeze-dried food, you're going to need a lot more moisture. And if you're feeding a kibble, you're never going to get them where you want them to be. It's really hard because if you're feeding a kibble has about 6% moisture in it. And if you're feeding a raw or gently cooked food, it's going to have anywhere from 70 to 80% moisture in it. That's a huge difference. So to take your 1 cup of kibble and add the moisture to get from 6% up to 75%, it's a lot of water. So that would be the thing that I would be concerned about. And generally, they'll drink enough to keep themselves hydrated. So a Cavapoo, she might weigh 15 pounds. What they need for maintenance is 30 mLs of water. So that's an ounce per pound of body weight. So that's 450 mLs for that dog for the day. So part of that's going to be in the food. Part of that's going to be in what she drinks. And she should maintain hydration. But we do know that dogs that are completely on a kibble-fed diet, one, they do drink more trying to rehydrate themselves, and they are pretty much in a constant state of dehydration, low-level dehydration, and that's why their kidneys tend to have more issues later in life. No way you're giving insects to your dogs. I give them to your pet toads. Well, there you go. If you want to feed insects, get a toad. If you want a vegan, get a guinea pig. Perfect. I like that answer. Not a fan of the bug diets either, but my dogs have been snacking on the cicadas here. You're in Illinois, and Forest Breeder, I got a video from her, and she had these things for planting seed, like little seed things for planting her plants for her greenhouse, and they were all filled with cicadas. And in each little pod, there were like 4 or 5 cicadas, and they were all in there doing their cicada thing and making loud noise. And I was like, okay, I would be so freaked out. I mean, I know they're not dangerous, but I'd be really freaked out. And yeah, the dog snacking on those is probably the same as my cat snacking on crickets. Like literally, have you seen my cats do it? They run across the field and they jump in the air and grab grasshoppers. It's the most amazing thing. Okay. Dr. Nick's class has been great. You're embarrassed to state that your 10-year-old lab husky mix loves the insect treats that he begs off the other attendees at K9 agility class. Well, I mean, my cats love the dehydrated worms that we give to the chickens. Yeah. They will break into the bags. We had to put them in a metal can because they will break into the bags for them.
Yeah. And I'd say treats is different as like a once in a while type thing, but not solely as
well. And I will say, like my skeevability, is that a word? My like ick factor with feeding insects to my pets comes from my ick factor for eating me eating. Like, I mean, I know they make insect protein stuff for people to eat. There's no way. Like, I'm sorry. I will go to my grave without eating an insect, unless it's an accident. It's just the way I am. But I also don't want to eat tripe.
Yep.
And green tripe.
Fair.
I don't even want white tripe. I don't want to eat green tripe, but I know that it is super nutritious for my dogs. So I don't have a skeeve factor there. So I don't know. It's just eating bugs. Anybody remember that? Do you remember that TV show Fear Factor?
Yes.
And those people were having to eat bugs and worms and things all the time?
No. Pass.
No. Anyway. So it's okay that your lab husky, steals them from others. It's fine. Your dog suffers from seizures. She's on Reiki, lion's mane, full spectrum CBD. No, I think it could be reishi, but I might be getting Reiki. Still suffers. Could she be oversensitive to the THC? Can the THCA in FS?
Full spectrum.
Oh, no, that might be the Frank Simpson oil convert to the psychotropic form of THC. Man, I am not a THC expert, but I do like full spectrum CBD. If she was too sensitive to it, she wouldn't have more seizures. She would get wobbly or leak urine. So I don't think that is an issue. She may need acupuncture. She may need herbs. She may need a diet change. So many things can cause seizures. So, there'd be a lot more things that we may need to look at for that. Golden Retriever asks, what omegas are best for me? So most diets, and it depends what you're feeding. If you're feeding a whole food, grass-fed, free-range, happy animal diet that's not cooked to death, then the omega 6-to-3 ratio is probably good. Like a lot of the diets and companies that we recommend, their 6-to-3 ratio is less than 5-to-1. Some of them it's 3-to-1 and even 1-to-1. That's where you want to be. If you're feeding dry kibble, I think AFCO says it has to be less than 30-to-1. Well, 30-to-1 is a big difference from 3-to-1. So, but I supplement omega-3s for my guys anyway. And what I do, I use Iceland Pure as my brand of omegas, or I have a Derma-3 capsule, which is a whitefish oil. And I will use that on my dogs who have a super sensitive GI. Some of them, if they're prone to pancreatitis, they need an encapsulated form rather than a liquid form of fish oil. So I rotate back and forth. I use a small, it's an 8.75 ounce bottle, pump bottle of salmon oil for 5 dogs. They get it once a day. And when that bottle's gone, then I use a sardine anchovy, so a whitefish oil. And then that bottle's gone, I switch back. So I go back and forth with my guys. There are some omega-3s in the plant oils, but not near the levels that they are in the fish oils. So if you don't want to use fish oil, you can use krill oil. You can use phytoplankton. There's calamari oil. Dr. Tobias has a calamari. So there's a lot of different things out there that you can use. And it's kind of whatever your dog likes the taste of the best, whatever agrees with them the best. So I have a lot of different ones. For my own dogs, I use the Iceland Pure in a pump, but a lot of people like different ones. Adored Beast has some really nice ones. So there's a lot of them out there. Okay, feeding home cooked to a 40-pound male doodle that is neutered. How much should I be feeding right now? I'm feeding 14 to 16 ounces twice a day. That's a lot. So the average for a 40-pounder, and again, it's going to depend on the calorie count. So most diets are about 30 calories per ounce, but they could be as dense as 40. Solutions pet food is 80 calories per ounce. So it kind of depends on, and I'm not somebody who has to know the exact calorie count of what I'm feeding, but I like to have at least a general idea. So like I have recipes that are based on whitefish as the main protein. Those are very lean. They may only be like 22 calories an ounce. So a 40-pound dog, it's going to be an average of 20 to 30 calories per pound of body weight. So somewhere between 800 and 1200 calories per day is what your dog needs. And if your dog is maintaining their weight and has an ideal body condition score, remember Dr. Muir talked about that yesterday, and make sure you're not overestimating, then I would leave it at 14 to 16 ounces twice a day. So I was talking about yesterday, my 10-pound dog should only have to eat about 3 ounces twice a day, but it has taken 16 ounces a day, so 8 ounces twice a day to keep him lean. He's just constant motion. So it really depends. I do have a feeding chart available, and that feeding chart might be on the allprovide.com website, where it gives you the weight of the dog. And it goes in 5-pound increments, and it tells you if they're feeding 2% of body weight, how many ounces, and if you're feeding 3% of body weight, how many ounces you would feed per day. But again, it is extremely variable based on how nutrient dense your food is and how active your pet is. So again, this is people tend to want these exact numbers. It's not exact. Every pet is different. How many ounces a day does your dog eat?
Let's see. He is getting, so he's like Forrest. He's a busy dog, never stops, in constant motion. And he eats 3 times a day, and he's almost at 3 pounds a day.
3 pounds a day. And what's he weigh?
95 pounds.
95. So average for a 100-pound lazy dog would be 2 pounds a day. So this is almost 100-pound active dog who needs 3 pounds a day. So he's getting 3% of body weight, whereas the couch potato needs 1.5 to 2%. So I had a 125-pound Doberman. He was a little heavy, but he was also very big, and he wasn't very active. And so he got about 1.5 pounds a day, which was less than 1.5% of body weight, and absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So they're really different.
Yeah. I fed my Great Dane about 1.5% to maintain.
Yeah. So they're different. The bigger the dog, generally the lower the percentage, but she's got a really active big dog. So it really depends. Hey, Barbara Silverstein from New Jersey. Dr. Ian Billinghurst was fabulous as always. What a gift he has been to the raw, fresh food movement. Yeah, he's amazing. He is amazing. I tried to get him to come to Orlando in October for our international experience that we're holding. And he said, no, I've aged out of traveling that far. So, but he's brilliant. So we have him on our podcast. As a matter of fact, on the Natural Healthy Pets podcast, we have one with Dr. Ian Billinghurst on fermented superfoods. So you can go on Dr. Judy U and just look up that podcast. It's free to listen to that. All right. I have 2 dogs that itch when the weather is hot, no fleas. I take them to get the Cytopoint. Is there anything nutritional I could be giving them to help with this condition? So I have a great blog. It's called Summer Damp Heat. And what you're getting is summer damp heat. This is from a Chinese medicine standpoint. But summer, and so it's funny that you say that because I'm sitting here itching my palms. About 3 weeks ago, my palms broke out in this horrible itchy rash. It's summer damp heat showing up in my palms. So for our dogs, it can show up anywhere being itchy. But there are things that you can do. I would try to avoid the Cytopoint. We've had a lot of reports of autoimmune hemolytic anemia, some other issues with the Cytopoint shots, and generally they'll stop working after a while. So me personally, and a lot of people are going to scream about this, but me personally, I would put my dog on steroids for a week before I would get a Cytopoint shot. Because once you put that shot in, you can't get it out, and it's in there for 4 to 6 weeks minimum. You can't get it out, and if they have a reaction, there's no antidote. There's nothing you can do. Whereas if you give a low dose of a steroid or antihistamine, and this is not holistic at all. I mean, I would much rather see you use quercetin or PEA. I mean, so many other things that we can use that are natural. But there are drugs that are safer than Cytopoint.
And diet manipulation is so easy.
Yes.
That's always going to be my first go-to.
Exactly. So yeah, look at the blog on Summer Damp Heat because there is stuff in there. You want to use drying, cooling foods in the summer, and that can be really helpful. All right, 2 dogs. Oh, that's the same one. And you've got 2 dogs that are itching. So it's probably not even an allergy. It's not an allergy because it's 2 of them, unless they are siblings then, or parent and child. Heard that it's best to feed dogs 1 time a day. I have Italian Greyhounds had trouble regularly with bile throw up if they don't get food before they go to bed. So some dogs, fast metabolism, need 2 times a day and 3 times a day. And somebody else I am talking to tomorrow feeds their dog 4 times a day. It is very different.
Yeah.
Part of the fasting fad, and it's more than a fad. I mean, there is definitely science behind it, but part of that is keeping the blood sugar low. Well, if you're a raw feeder and you don't have a lot of carbs in the diet, their blood sugar is going to be pretty low anyway. When we're feeding kibble, that gives them a high blood sugar. So Rodney Habib did an interesting thing with his own dog. And he did a blood sugar with the dog on raw food, and it came up at like 73. And then he fed the dog kibble. I couldn't even bring myself to do that. But he fed the dog kibble, and the resting blood sugar was like 120. That's a huge difference. So if you're running around with a resting blood sugar that is in a good metabolic state versus a higher resting blood sugar where the pancreas is always having to work and insulin is always having to be spit out, that's a huge difference. So if you are feeding a low carb diet, you may, especially with Italian Greyhounds, and it's interesting that I know what an IG is, like Instagram. But you know, they have a high metabolism. They tend to be active. They're kind of just always in motion.
Yeah.
So 2 times a day may be what you need. All my dogs are fed twice a day. I don't want to listen to the riot that would happen if I skipped a meal.
And I've learned with my dog, he gets the hunger,
the bile
and stuff. He can only go 12 hours without food. Like that's his max. And then we edge into that territory where his stomach wakes him up in the morning and it's growly and grumbly and making all those noises. Yep. And so I actually, his last feeding, his dinner, I withhold like maybe 2 spoonfuls and I give it to him right before bed at like 9 p.m. So that helps.
Another great trick for the morning hunger pukes, a ginger cookie at bedtime. Ginger is really good for soothing the stomach. If you have a really hot dog, then I would do something with peppermint because that's also really good. But almost all of my clients with the hunger puke animals, we have them do a little ginger tea or a little ginger cookie. I have a recipe for ginger cookies in a couple of the books. I think it's on the website. They can be really helpful at bedtime. They're also really helpful if you have a dog who gets a little nauseous in the car. Give them a ginger cookie. Okay. I don't mention too much. My German Shepherd was born in my kitchen, passed to age 20 plus 7 months. Awesome. Fed barf her first 10 years. Then I fell into the commercial food again. You're back to feeding real. Good for you. But 20, that's amazing. Good for you. You'll be in Orlando. Yay. Hoping there are no hurricanes. I think we should be pretty good by that time of year.
Mid-October. Yeah. Florida native, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, we should be good. Absolutely love my show today on pet grief. Oh, yay. Yeah. We actually have a really good download on pet grief. One of my personal heart dog, Pookie, who's on that book, was killed by veterinary malpractice. A colleague killed my dog. And it took me a long time to be able to talk about it. I might have talked about it on that show. It took me a long time to talk about it, and I was actually seeing a therapist for a PTSD from an automobile accident. And we were talking about something, and I was listing some things that had made me sad in the past. And I mentioned Pookie's name along with some other things, and she went, "Wait, back up. Who's Pookie?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Your face just totally changed. Who is Pookie and what's going on?" So I had to tell her the story. And of course, I bawled my eyes out again. And she said, "How long ago that happened?" And I'm like, "I don't know, 5 years." And she said, "You are not over that at all." And I went, "Yeah, no, not over it at all." And I said, "How do I get over it?" And so she gave me a whole bunch of things that I could do, sent me to a couple of websites, and had me write a letter to Pookie. So, and I know this is really off topic from nutrition, but you asked. And so I wrote a letter to Pookie, and I would recommend this if you have lost a pet, or if you are already in grieving mode because your pet has a terminal diagnosis, or you're really worried about them. The letter was so cathartic, and she gave me leading questions that I was supposed to answer. And I actually only ended up writing down one sentence, because as I read them in my mind, I was going through what I wanted to say, and I never had to write any of them down. I bawled my eyes out. And then when I was done, it was like, I can now talk about Pookie. And I really love Pookie still. And I actually was able to forgive the people who killed her. So, really, really useful. And we do have a free download on the website for that grieving process that I would recommend highly for anyone who has lost a pet. And it could be a pet you lost as a child, but one that you just haven't gotten over. It's really, really worthwhile, because it'll help you. You know, sometimes holding on to that blocks us from other things, like being able to fully love the pets that we have now. So really worth it. But anyway, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for answering my question on feeding. He's at a great body weight. Maybe his food is not as nutrient dense. Yeah. And that's fine. You know, if the food's agreeing with him and things are going well and you're doing some rotation in the meal, you know, maybe that's just what he needs. But we could add a little more nutrient density and maybe not have to give as much food to the dog. But, you know, then he might look at you and go, well, where'd the rest of it go? Mm-hmm. So, all right. Have a 1-year-old golden born with small kidneys. Oh, one of those. Eats raw on Chinese herbs, fluids every day. Hates her raw food. Don't blame her. Treats, egg sticks, dragonflies are all yummy. Would B12 be good to give her? She's doing great. Stage 3. I would cook her food. So most of these dogs, well, she's Jing deficient and Yang deficient. And so raw is too cold, too heavy, too wet, too yin. And she already has too much of that. So I would gently cook this dog's food. Probably she should be on like warming herbs, and eggs are phenomenal for this dog. So, oh gosh, I think this is the best book for that. The Yin and Yang Nutrition has the list of Jing tonics, because this dog is Jing deficient, which basically means didn't get all the right parts and pieces when they were giving them out standing in line in the puppy making factory. So we didn't get all the right parts and pieces, and now we have to do everything we can to kind of rebuild the Jing. So we need postnatal Jing because we didn't get the prenatal. So eggs are really good for that. So when we talk about foods that are Jing foods, talk about things that are what I call baby foods. So eggs are the beginning of life. Small nuts and seeds, the beginning of life. So like ground sesame seeds or sesame seed oil. Sprouts. Very, very good. Thank you. So sardines, small fish, things that are the beginning of life. That's what we need to be including in that dog's diet. And she really wants her food cooked. And I know that you get shamed for not feeding raw food and for gently cooking. You're not going to cook the nutrients out of it. She really needs that. And she just doesn't like the raw food because it's not right for her particular issue. So anything else to add on that? All right, listen to the probiotic and prebiotic session. That might have been Julianne. How do I know which one is best, and how do I know when to switch it up, and which one do I go to? So prebiotics are basically fiber sources. So you can do that by adding a supplement, or you just get that from fibrous things in the diet. If you're feeding like a ground whole rabbit, the hair counts as a prebiotic, but things like pumpkin and green beans, some of our fibrous veggies, those count as prebiotics. So you can use that in your diet if you're making your own, or you can add a supplement like the ground coconut, dried coconut fiber is great. Dried pumpkin fiber is great, or canned pumpkin, or you can buy a product with it. You can buy combination products that have probiotic and prebiotic together. And then as far as switching up probiotics, what I do with my own dogs, again, there's no science to this. I use a bottle of one, and when that bottle's gone, I go to the next one, and then that bottle's gone, I go to the next one. Remember, I have 5 dogs, so I go through bottles a little faster than you. But if the bottle lasted you a month or 6 weeks, that's fine. Then buy something slightly different on the next go round. So for my dogs, I use Adored Beast Love Bugs. I use Phytos Flora. I use Symbiota, which is a liquid one. And it's a soil base that has humic and fulvic acid. So I'll switch them around, just kind of depending on where we are. How often do you switch, or don't you? Do you use probiotics?
Not at the moment. I'm still working on healing my dog's gut. So the only probiotic I'm using is Saccharomyces boulardii. So
Saccharomyces boulardii is actually a yeast probiotic, and it is really good. Like if you have a pet who has to take antibiotics, because antibiotics are going to kill all the good bacteria in the gut, Saccharomyces boulardii you want to be using while they're on the antibiotic and for at least a good couple weeks afterwards, and then repopulating the gut. You're coming to Orlando as well. Yay. I did talk about it on the show. Okay, thanks. We have a beautiful, itchy 115-pound English lab with a grain mite allergy. Very reactive chicken, turkey, feeding some grain-free kibble with lots of veggies, homegrown beef, but need more dietary suggestions as your daughter-in-law is a vet and keeps harshly warning the potential of DCM with the grain-free food. Oh my gosh. So you need to go watch some of my videos with Connor Brady on DCM and read my blogs on DCM. And in the Keeping Your Pets Naturally Healthy book, there's a big section on DCM. Grain-free kibble causing DCM is such a farce. It is a myth. And the veterinarians and cardiologists just refuse to give it up because they want to push Purina and Hills. And there's actually a lawsuit against Hills that was brought by the owner of Keto.
Yeah,
Keto
Daniel something.
It's Daniel. What's the name of his food? It's not Keto Pet. It's
Vision.
Keto. It's Keto something diet, which is a dry diet. But it doesn't have grains in it. And for all of us who are raw feeders, I've never fed my dogs grains, ever. There's no reason dogs need grains. They need taurine, which is in meat, by the way. Could legumes and potatoes potentially block some absorption of taurine? Maybe. I think the problem with those diets is they just don't have enough meat in them, and dogs need taurine. They need meat. So anyway, and a lot of the dogs that have DCM, oh gosh, I don't want to go down this whole thing. A lot of dogs with DCM have normal taurine levels. So in that study, in that list, they didn't exclude breeds that are prone to DCM. So, gee, an Irish Wolfhound, a Great Dane, a Cocker Spaniel gets DCM. It's genetic for them. They should have been taken out of the list. So it's the whole thing is a farce. But anyway, you have a dog with a grain mite allergy. If you have dry kibble, I don't care if it is grain-free or with grain, you get storage mites. Dry food will have storage mites. So if that food is more than 3 weeks old, you've got storage mites. So you have a 115-pound dog. I don't know how big the bags of kibble are that you're buying, but if your food is not used up within 3 weeks, it's got storage mites, and that's going to react as well. And when you get that dry kibble, it must be stored in the original bag. Do not take it out and dump it into something else. That brings up another problem, though, because the linings of these bags are impregnated with things to keep the food from spoiling and to keep it from getting mites and blah, 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 blah. And that's why it needs to be in that original bag, and it needs to be stored in a cool, dark place, because food oxidizes and goes rancid with heat, light, and air. So cool, dark place, well sealed, used up within 3 weeks. Otherwise, you've got storage mites and you've got rancid fats in there. Also, when you go to the store to buy that food, look at where they're storing it. If it's in a big box pet food store and it's stacked in the front window where the sun is beating down on it, not good. You're opening a bag of rancid food. There's so many reasons why we don't feed this stuff, but grains are absolutely not required. This goes, if you haven't listened to Nick Thompson's talk on vegan dogs, grains are not necessary for dogs or cats, and I've never fed them. I've never had a dog have DCM. And I used to have Dobermans. So, okay. So grain mites, you're going to react with storage mites, going to react with dust mites. So, no carpet in the house, clean all the time. Like, oh my God, if I had a dog with a dust mite allergy, forget it. I don't dust. My house is a dust factory. So, anyway, you're new to my page today. Well, that's great. If you want to stay up to midnight doing the deep dive, go, down the rabbit hole, you'll find a lot of information on there. So, but I know a 115-pound dog is big, but I would work as much as you can toward getting off that kibble because of the allergy issues, because you're going to get storage mites in there, unless it's really only, like, I had a client once, 5-pound Chihuahua, and he's standing in the exam room with me for his annual. And I asked what he was feeding, and he said, "Oh, I buy a 50-pound bag of very popular cheap food, and it lasts me the whole year." I almost fell over. I was like, dude, I don't care if you do anything else in your life. I want you to start buying 5-pound bags. But they cost more. I mean, would you like to eat a stale box of Cheerios that was left open in your cabinet for an entire year? Like, that is the poor dog. I just want to take him home. I wish I could ask you a question about my cat who has cardiomyopathy and hypercalcemia and will barely eat. He's on TCM and CoQ10. Well, that's good. You can ask. You might want to send it in an email. So cats get 2 kinds of cardiomyopathy, dilated and hypertrophic. And the question is, where's the hypercalcemia coming from? And he's barely, depending on the stage of his cardiomyopathy, he's barely eating because he's more worried about breathing and having his heart beat. So, although I had a cat who was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy when he was 3 and he died at 18 from something totally unrelated. So, things can change. All right. But we do have a really good blog on heart disease in cats and dogs, and I talk about cardiomyopathy in cats in that blog. It's also in the Keeping Your Pets Naturally Healthy book. So you might want to look at that. The website, it's free, drjudymorgan.com. You can read the cardiomyopathy, and it talks about supplements, and we have some pretty good things for that. So why is your dog low on magnesium even when I rotate his raw food brand like Small Batch and Solutions? What food can I give to increase that? So some of these animals don't absorb and metabolize these heavy metals very well from food. I'm trying to think what's really high in magnesium off the top of my head.
Oh, goodness.
I'd have to think about that. But we do have some, like if they're testing low on magnesium, spinach might be pretty high in it. But I don't know if it's going to have enough. Like if you have a dog who's low, how much you're going to have to feed to get them up there. Maybe some organ meats, but some of them will test really low. Just like when we feed complete diets that have vitamin mineral balance, we'll get low vitamin D because almost all of them are almost all dogs and people are vitamin D deficient. So I really recommend testing. And that's why I like the VDI lab tests. And we do have 15% off VDI lab products at drjudymorgan.com if you use the code VDI Labs 2024. So that there is a blood test that will test vitamin D and magnesium and I think B12 and folate. I think that's all in one test. It's worth doing that once a year just to see where your pets are. And you may need a magnesium supplement. They have one that is a transdermal that you put inside the ear. We just had this question the other day because their dog was allergic to the gel and we ended up having to find a magnesium tincture, I think we found. Is that Caroline? Yes.
Hi, Ashley.
Do you know her?
She's in the Facebook group. Very knowledgeable.
Got it. You also give a postbiotic if you're in Australia. It's from Maluka and called P3. Yeah. So postbiotics are kind of the new buzzword. We went through prebiotics and then probiotics and now postbiotics. If your dog has really good gut health, they're making the postbiotics. For those that don't have good gut health, then we can supply them. So postbiotics are things like short chain fatty acids and some of the vitamin K and some of the other vitamins that are made in the lower part of the bowel after the digestive process has occurred and all the good bacteria and yeast and viruses that are supposed to be there, basically they're probiotics, all the good guys. Then they make all this stuff. But if you have a dog with an unhealthy gut, then you could add postbiotics as well. Feed my dogs raised right with dog greens, bovine colostrum in the morning, green juju in the evening with boss dog goat's milk. Do I need to add salmon or fish oil? Goat's milk has DHA in it. You're probably fine. Mostly because Raised Right and Green Juju both have an omega-6 to 3 ratio of somewhere between 1:1 and 3:1. So it's way low. And actually my dogs are eating food that has like a 3:1 ratio. I still add it because of heart disease with my dogs.
I would add it if your dog has any condition where you need that extra therapeutic benefit.
So arthritis, brain health.
Any kind of itis.
Any kind of itis, but brain health, those kinds of things. So that's why I do it for my guys. Was debating if I was going to have to take antibiotics for a sinus infection, was going to borrow the dog's probiotic. Well, Saccharomyces boulardii, and actually the one on our website is a human one. Saccharomyces boulardii is the same across the board, so it really doesn't matter. But yeah, if you have to take antibiotics for a sinus infection, first of all, I'd do everything I could not to do that. So I just read a great study the other day where they did it on the island of Grenada, and they were testing herbal tinctures for their effectiveness against drug-resistant E. coli. They did tincture of neem, moringa, and turmeric, curcumin. And all three of them had phenomenal antibacterial properties. They were great. So, I would look at what could you do naturally instead, if at all possible.
I think. What? Was Rita Hogan speaking?
Rita Hogan might be the last day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she has great information about the natural antibiotic properties of herbs.
Yeah, so Rita Hogan, she'll be on day 4.
That one.
So definitely listen to that. She also has an herbal book coming out.
The Herbal Dog.
The Herbal Dog coming out, I think, in September. She's spent a couple of years on that thing, so I can't wait for it to come out. As probiotics now, I'm rotating between goat kefir and homemade kombucha. Great. Fermented vegetables. Great. We have the Dr. Ian Billinghurst podcast on fermented superfoods. So that might be worth listening to as well. Is that a good enough source of probiotics? Yeah, absolutely.
I would say most likely.
Yeah.
Unless you've got gut damage or something.
Right. Because natural probiotics like that, you're going to get, when you buy a supplement, you might get 6 or 8 species. When you do a natural fermentation like that, you're getting hundreds. Yep. Billy Hookman has a great talk that he did at a couple of our events last year about things like that, and talking about how many species you get and how, that natural fermentation. He's huge into fermentation. And there's actually a fermentation, how to do home fermentation lecture on Dr. Judy U from Billy. It's like $5. All right, 10-year-old Maine. Oh, he's a Maine Coon. Oh Lord. Yes. Gosh, I had a client who they just love their Maine Coons, and they kept getting Maine Coons, and they kept having heart disease, and it's just so sad. Hi, Teresa Carpenter. There you go. Pumpkin and chia seeds are high in magnesium. Almonds, spinach, and salmon. Thank you. So there you go. But again, is that going to be enough to bring the magnesium levels up? What you would have to do is start adding those kinds of things and do it for like 4 months, because it takes a long time for those levels to build up. The other thing would be that hair mineral analysis. And then maybe doing something with Ava Frick, because a lot of times when you do that hair mineral analysis, she'll compare ratios of different minerals. And sometimes something else is blocking the absorption. So she has really good information on that. Okay. I had a doctor who moved here to Florida from up north. She was shocked to learn that even us Floridians are low in vitamin D. Everybody's low in vitamin D. It's just the way it is. So hopefully you got to listen to Dr. Katie Woodley today, why vets don't like raw feeding. We also have a podcast with her on Dr. Judy U on gut health for optimal health. Gut health is kind of her favorite thing to talk about. So that's really good. Hannah Mandelbaum, Demystifying Organic Pet Food, and she works with Evermore, or does she own Evermore? I don't know if she's.
I'm not sure if she's young or not. But she might be.
She's an amazing speaker as well. Megan Barrett. I just saw today that she's going to be speaking in Wales at the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society conference. I think it's in July. So yay her! That's an amazing accomplishment. So tomorrow, you are going to get to hear from Dr. Gary Richter. I've done podcasts and interviews with him. He is amazing as well. He's going to talk about the link between nutrition and disease, problems with kibble and canned. If you finish this whole thing and you haven't figured out that we're really not a fan of highly processed food, he's going to keep pounding it home. And we give you good reasons. And then I have a ton of information. I have a series of blogs called Kick the Kibble on my website, talking about all the different reasons. I couldn't put it in one blog because it was a book. And so there's just all the different things that we have to be concerned with when we are feeding a highly processed food. You're going to get to hear from Dr. Kathy Alanovi. She actually sits on a couple of the committees for AFCO, which is the American Association of Feed Control Officials. So they basically set a lot of the rules for what has to be in pet food, what can be in pet food. They make the ingredient definitions. They do not enforce anything. They just give all the information to the enforcement agencies like FDA and the Center for Veterinary Medicine and the state regulators. She's a co-founder. Thank you. So they give all that information to the state regulators so that then they can crack down on everybody. But Kathy Alanovi has been involved in that for quite a while, and she actually heads up a group of smaller pet food companies and helps them navigate the waters of AAFCO and FDA and state regulators. So she's going to talk about how to use food therapy for healing. She's amazing to listen to. Dr. Barbara Royal tomorrow, the dangers of commercial pet food and kibble. Again, listen to what she has to say. It's an amazing interview. She's really great. Kendra Pope, going to talk about nutrition in cancer. Kendra is one of 4 board certified holistic veterinary oncologists in the country. 4. So she is certified in herbology, food therapy, acupuncture, Tuina. She has her master's in TCVM, and she's a board certified veterinary oncologist. So she is just, I love talking to her. We tried to get her to come in October, and she's got so many things going on. Hopefully the next time we have a big event, we can get Kendra to come. So she's going to talk about cancer cell metabolism, dietary modifications in cancer patients, and cancer fighting prevention foods. Really, really important. She actually has a course Teresa Carpenter is taking right now. It was a very in-depth, goes for a few months course on preventing cancer in our pets. It's only offered once a year. The admission to it has been closed at this point, but I could listen to Kendra talk all day. She's just amazing. And then Eeyore Basco from Hawaii. He has been in the holistic medicine field for 60 years. He has a radio show in Hawaii. He has a practice in Hawaii. He's going to talk about TCM and macrobiotics for feeding pets to help prevent illnesses. He is also amazing to listen to. I listened to him at one of the holistic veterinary medicine conferences, and I was blown away. At that time, he was doing a talk on cancer, and I was blown away by his lecture. So he's great. So hopefully you'll have time to listen to all those. But if you don't have time to listen to all of those, remember, for only $59, you can get lifetime access to the summit. And that's going to go up to $129 after the summit ends. So better to get it now. And then you can always go back and re-listen to things and take notes. I know Teresa Carpenter does a lot of writing for us, and she's really good at going back and listening to all these interviews and taking notes and keeping track and writing things down for us. And it can be really helpful to have that information. Also, a big shout out, thank you to Chi Dog for sponsoring the Nutrition Summit, because they're all about TCVM nutrition, and we really appreciate that. Don't forget your free gifts, 15% off VDI Lab products at drjudymorgan.com with VDI Labs 2024. And if you want the super duper thing for $199, you can get the Summit Lifetime Access Plus online access to our Dog Longevity Made Easy course on Dr. Judy U. And I forget what that one sells for, but I think it's a $49 course. So you get that. And then also the flagship course that we did over a full weekend. We did it live last year on food therapy for dogs, which was valued at $200. It was sold for $249. We also have TCVM Food Therapy 101 and 201 on Dr. Judy U if you really want to dive deep into TCVM therapy for your pets. So tons of good information. Let's see. Hi from the Catskills. My rescues taught me about whole fresh foods. And, I have to say that there are so many rescues now. Monkey's House, Dog Hospice, Senior Dog Hospice Sanctuary in New Jersey. Everything is about food therapy. They at times have had up to 32 dogs in their home, and every dog gets an individualized meal plan and supplements based on TCDM, which is pretty amazing. I work with a Cavalier Rescue in it's Midwest Cavalier, I think it's called, but they're in Chicago. And their dogs are all raw fed. And when you adopt a dog, you have to agree to feed whole food diets, raw diets, which some people get mad about. But, you know, those dogs are going to really good homes where people really, really want to do the best. And I love seeing these. We always partner during our Cyber Week. We have our big sale of the year. We partner with 2 rescues. We look for holistic rescues to partner with and help raise money for them. We feel that it's really critically important for people to get this education. And because we also want to bring along more holistic veterinarians at our Naturally Healthy Pets experience in Orlando in October, it's October 12th and 13th. We actually gave 3 scholarships, 2 to veterinary students and 1 to a veterinary technician student, so that they could come to the event and learn from these amazing holistic speakers, because we want more. There are not enough holistic veterinarians. And Paula from Ireland at the very beginning said, why do all the good holistic doctors leave us? Well, a lot of us are aging out, so gotta bring along some new ones. And we get burnt out because unfortunately a lot of people don't look for holistic care until
too late.
It's a disaster, you know. And so if you've been giving Apoquel and Cytopoint for 3 or 4 years and using hydrolyzed diets, and your dog still has allergies and itching, and we've never gotten to the root cause, it takes a long time to turn that around. So Anna, thank you for the information. Pumpkin needs to be cooked. Yeah, it definitely does. Chia seeds should be soaked. Rotate the foods and introduce one at a time and track it. Yep, there you go. So perfect. So, you know, if you're gonna add things for that magnesium, just make sure that it's gonna be okay for your dogs. Would love to attend. We have high holidays on those dates. Well, good news, Ella, because we have virtual tickets that just became available. We figured out how to make it virtual. And again, you can get it so that you can listen to it later, because we did realize after we chose the dates that was an issue for some people. So virtual tickets with recordings are available. So if you want to check out the experience, you can go check it out. And, you know, it still might be something that you'd be able to do. All right. Anyone have any further questions for us? Because we're coming near the end. You got a virtual ticket. There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was doing a consult with somebody from Ohio, and she just said, I've got old dogs, old cats, and an old mom that I have to take care of. And I just cannot get to Florida and leave. I can't find anybody to take care of this mess. And I understand that, because
you're in the same boat.
I am in the same boat, because our entire Naturally Healthy Pets team will be at the event. And the people who normally take care of my animals are part of the Naturally Healthy Pets team. So we live in North Carolina, and we actually are bringing someone down from New Jersey, one of our old friends that used to help us in New Jersey, bringing them to North Carolina for a week to care for all of the animals, so that my mother can go with us and all the team can go with us, and our animals will be in good hands. So sometimes you have to jump through a lot of hoops to make things happen, but that's what we're doing. But your dog's staying with your mom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He gets to stay home with mom. Grandma. Grandmas are good for those things.
Yeah.
See, mine's grandmas go with us. So, and some of the people on our team are bringing their dogs to make it easier for them. So it's just kind of the way it is. How is my mom? My mom's doing really well. For those of you who don't know, she fell when we were on vacation, tripped on a sidewalk, shattered her upper arm and her hip. She's 87. So had surgery on both, and she's back to walking. It was on April 14th. She's back to walking pretty well. The arm's going to be a 2-year process, but working on it.
Yeah, she gets around really well.
Yeah, she's doing pretty well. So, all right, everyone have a wonderful evening. And we will be here at same time, same channel tomorrow, same people. You're stuck with us for a couple more days. And we'll answer more questions and talk about what's being talked about tomorrow and what's being talked about the next day. So everyone have a wonderful evening and enjoy the summit.
Yeah. Sponge mode.